Hey, on the Travel Ones podcast, I'm lucky to have Nic Hinrichsen. How are you today, Nic?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
So far, so good. I'm having a good day, actually. Really excited to talk to you. You're the founder of WithClutch, which is a refinancing for cars, which, you know, I was talking to my wife about over lunch, and I'm like, God, it makes perfect sense. You can refinance a house. Why not refinance a car? But can you kind of give me a background of how you got to this point?
Sure. Love to. So I moved to the U.S. in 2011. I'm from Germany originally. I moved to the U.S. to go to business school. I went to Stanford for 2 years. And the main reason I moved here was to get exposed and find my way into the tech scene, because I wanted to start a company in the tech space. And I thought there's no better way to come over here than going to Stanford for business school. And I was lucky to get in. And so at business school, I was looking around for businesses to start, and I ran into a now very good friend and co-founder, Chris Coleman, who's a huge car nut. He loves cars. His first car was a DeLorean, the one from Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was his first car. He found it on Craigslist, wrecked, and then he and his dad fixed it up, and I was actually driving in the end. So he loved cars, and we thought about maybe we can do something entrepreneurial in the car space, when all our classmates towards the end of the business school experience asked Chris for advice. How do I sell a car? And so we started out giving advice, but then very quickly found ourselves selling our classmates' cars.
Yeah.
So we detailed them, listed them on Craigslist, and then went through the whole process of selling their cars. Have you ever sold a car on Craigslist?
I have not, no.
It's a inconvenient experience. And so we thought we could build this company that takes the stress out of that. We went through the startup incubator at YCombinator, and then ended up pivoting the business towards a business where we didn't do peer-to-peer. So I wouldn't help you sell your car to another private party, but instead I would help leasing companies and rental companies sell cars to private parties. And so they're sitting on a lot of inventory. And the main difference that we introduced was we did it purely online. So you needed to determine online what you wanted to buy, place the order, we would get the car, recondition it, and deliver it to you. And then 4 years into the journey, so we started in 2013. In 2017, we had raised $10 million at the time and asked ourselves, what would be the best way to grow this company? And contrary to what other founders might have wanted or thought or done, we decided not to raise more money, but instead compared notes with Carvana, which was growing really, really, really fast at the time.
Yeah.
And so we compared notes with the founders there and quickly realized that they were in a much faster trajectory than we were. Yet we had built really interesting technology that they wanted to build and hadn't started yet. And so we all agreed it probably makes most sense for everyone to just combine the efforts. And so we brought our whole team to Carvana, sold the company to Carvana, and then joined the business shortly before it went public, or around when it went public in 2017, and stayed on until today, until basically a month ago, I should say. And so you asked me about the refinancing. That idea actually came to our mind much earlier. It came to our mind in 2000. When was it? Yeah, 17-ish, short before the sale, because we noticed that most of the people who bought a car from us needed financing, and most of the people who needed financing asked us, the dealer, for advice on how to get a loan. And we were partnering with lenders, but we had very different incentives, right? We wanted to give people the loans that paid us the most referral fee, and consumers really wanted the loan that had the lowest interest rate. So there we noticed that structurally incentives aren't very aligned, number one. Number two thing we noticed is a number of our customers weren't prime credit. And so the interest rates are pretty high. Interest rates can be all the way up to 29% in the car space, believe it or not. So what we noticed that a number of the people buying cars from us actually improved their credit over time. And after 12, 18 payments or so would have qualified for a lower rate. But they were somewhat stuck in the loan they got 12 to 18 months earlier. And so we thought, wouldn't it be the right thing for consumers if you could refinance your auto loan in a very convenient way? And so now that we left Carvana, we decided to go back to the insight we had from 3 years ago to build our next business based on that.
Okay. Why was there a lag? Were you just helping out build up Carvana? Or were you always working on WithClutch?
No. WithClutch started after Carvana. Carvana kept us very busy. Well, we joined Carvana because we wanted to, still wanted to pursue this mission and vision we had to improve the car buying experience. And at the time when we sold the company, we were selling around 150-ish cars in our biggest market. Carvana sold 75,000 cars last year, so it's a much bigger company, and
Yeah.
we didn't think we were where we wanted to be. So we wanted to help Carvana grow. We had really fun roles. Chris was running the website, basically the front end experience. When you go to Carvana.com, the search pages and legal detail pages, and I was running the sell to Carvana business, so the part of the business where you can sell your car to Carvana. And that was a really, really fun ride. At some point, like the entrepreneurial bug bit us again, and we then found a good timing for us to leave and start over. But yeah, we had a really good time at Carvana.
Well, that's cool. And you, was that part of the deal when they bought you? Were you the one asking to work with them, or was that part of just the contract where they said, if we're going to buy you, we want you to?
No, it was very mutual.
Nice.
Like, we had built technology that we wanted to integrate. Carvana had bought technology that they wanted us to integrate, but this was like, had you asked me at the time, is there any company in the car space that you would want to work for, even if you weren't paid? I would have told you, yeah, Carvana is probably really interesting right now, because they're growing so fast, and then it continued over the last 3 years. I got lucky to be part of it. Yeah.
Well, I always find maybe I'm wrong, but I always find that it seems like it's just a lot about timing. And kind of being
always about timing,
yeah, being in the right place, the right time, and learning what you needed to learn at that time. So
that's true. There's these many startups. They like the ideas come up and things are tried multiple times. Even selling used cars online, that was tried as early as 2001. There was a company called iMotors, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it was just a little too early, probably. And you need, like, there is inflection points where everything all of a sudden changes. And so we felt when we started in 2013, what cars should be sold online now. And we found in our business, a small niche of buyers who were totally cool with doing that. Others were still very, very hesitant. Carvana just had a broader reach. And so they were also on the same wave. They just had a broader reach at more customers.
Yeah.
But, like, how do you ask people, even January this year, do you think buying a used car online is crazy? People would have told you, yeah, that sounds pretty crazy. If you ask people now, they'll tell you buying a used car offline is crazy. And so with this pandemic, like what would have been otherwise an inflection over a period of 3, 4, 5 years, all of a sudden got cramped down into 3 months.
I was going to say, it's one of the things with my day job business. My online accounts it's Christmas time for them. I mean, they're literally selling as much as they were over the Christmas month, and it's
crazy. Yeah,
March, April, May.
You see it in many industries. You see it obviously in food delivery. Like, these companies were very low margin businesses, raising a lot of money but struggling to build a business. And then the pandemic started, and finally food delivery had a chance of becoming really profitable. You can look at Carvana stock price. It helped Carvana a lot. Obviously, these were really, really roller coaster like times, because like things changed so quickly, as we talked before we went on the call here. But it's the shift that otherwise would have taken 5 years was all accelerated, and online businesses are booming.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: when you graduated with your MBA from Stanford, or even going through the process, were you always interested in the financial tech, the fintech industry, or was it something you just kind of migrated to?
So I would be lying if I told you I really understood startup and tech very well. In Germany, what companies do, startups do, they often the capital in Germany is a little bit more risk averse, so it doesn't fund businesses that are brand new, trying to do new things. The capital in Germany, the venture capital, prefers investing in companies that have business models that work somewhere else already.
Oh, I gotcha.
And so Germany has a pretty mature ecosystem in the startup space, but the companies that get funded are primarily businesses that started somewhere else, or that are basically copies of businesses that were successful somewhere else. It started with eBay. eBay was growing really big in, 2000 or so, maybe a little earlier. And then in Germany, you have these three brothers who started just cloning like with really, really strong execution, these businesses. And so venture capital in Germany is more like, look what works and then replicate it. Venture capital in the US is very different. Here's where people need to innovate. You need to come up with new things. You have to have insights. Like obviously investments are much riskier, but then you have a really big market in the US, very different than in Germany alone. Like Europe is pretty big, but Germany alone isn't nearly as big as the US. And so you have a big market, and if it works out, these businesses become so big that it makes sense to invest in early stage companies for as long as you have a big portfolio. And so when I came here, I didn't have a good overview into what type of tech businesses are there. When we started our company called Carlypso, when we sold used cars online, one thing that we struggled with was how operationally intensive selling cars is. Like these vehicles are very heavy. You need to transport them, you need to recondition them, and so you need big operations. Something that Carvana did a really, really, really good job with.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They just had a few advantages, but like we started from scratch, so it's tough. So what we did notice is that the financial products we were selling were really, really easy to sell because they're all basically digital. And so that's something that, if I had to choose between two businesses, I would choose the one that's a little less operationally intensive. It's just on the flip side harder to have a moat. Like people can copy these businesses easier, and so you need to have an advantage that other people can't copy.
Yeah, and I think it's super smart to tie into a company that's in a similar process that can use your service. Are you kind of doing that with WithClutch? Is that what's your end game with
exactly.
WithClutch?
Yeah, so the end game is helping consumers on all their auto-related expenses. Because if you buy a car, what you don't notice is that you actually sign 6 contracts. You probably have a trade, so you sell a car.
Yep.
You buy a car. You have financing. You have an extended service plan. You have gap insurance, and then you have your car insurance. And so that feels weird in a time where people like the Uber-like experience, where you just pay on the go and or have subscription products like Spotify. And so there were a few companies that tried to do subscription business models for the auto space. It doesn't quite work because the car is expensive, loses a lot of value, and it depends very much on how much you use it. But people have cars. People have all these products. People lost overview of what they have, what they don't have. They don't understand their protection. They don't understand that they're overprotected. If you sell a car, if you have gap insurance and or extended warranty, you don't remember or you don't realize you can cancel them, get a refund. And so we want to help consumers across a broad range of expenses related to your auto.
Like I said at the beginning, I think it's completely smart. I mean, to me, the way I looked at it was, and maybe it's just the way my brain works, is if I buy a car when I'm just starting out, my daughter's boyfriend just graduated college, so his credit is terrible. You know what I mean? Not bad, but it's not good. But as he gets he hasn't. So if he goes out and gets a car loan, he might be at 15 or 20% interest. But as he builds up his credit, and he starts paying things off, his credit score is going to go up. But then he's still stuck with this 20% loan, car loan, and it was. So it makes sense that if you provide a service that can maybe refinance it, just like it makes so much sense. It's just like Geico and all the insurance companies that say, go to my website and see if we can save you money. Like,
exactly. When I moved here from Germany, I didn't have any credit history. We just don't have the same system. Mm-hmm. And so I started from scratch, and then I early got a credit card that was limited to, I think, $1,000, and I had to have money in my savings account for it to work. And then we started running the business, and I didn't need any loans or credit, so I never had a bottleneck or a problem. But at some point, Chris, my co-founder, found that Fiat was leasing these Fiat 500 electric vehicles for like $89 a month. And A, they look funny, and B, for $89 a month, it's less than I pay for my phone. It's more expensive not to have it. And so Chris said, let's just go and get to. So we went to the dealership. He was done in 5 minutes, $89 a month. I sat down, took the financing manager like half an hour, and then he said, okay, your monthly payments are going to be a little higher. It's going to be $1,200. And like, $1,200 versus $89, what happened? He's like, yeah, well, you don't have any credit. Like, it's not like you have bad credit. You have no credit.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's crazy. And then Chris co-signed, So he became a co-signer. I paid $89. Literally 6 months later, I made 6 payments. I, for fun, submitted a credit application. I could have had a car worth $100,000 for 1.99% interest. And so, had I not had Chris to co-sign, I would have had to accept
whatever they
basically implicitly is a much higher interest rate. But then make 6 payments, and you can refinance.
See, God, maybe going after college graduates is a really smart thing with this.
It's a good idea. There's 2 big segments. Like fundamentally, what you in order with regard to targeting, you want to target people who migrate in credit, just like we talked a little earlier. And so you have people who migrate from challenge credit, let's say credit score below 600, into the near prime segment, somewhere between 600 and 700. And you have a different group that is near prime that becomes prime. So it goes from 600 to 700 to somewhere above 700.
Yeah.
The people who had challenge credit, that means below 600, you have 2 different types of people. You have, we call them chronically or behaviorally subprime people. So they just have never received like training on financial literacy. So they just don't know better. They don't understand and also don't care about the implications of not making their credit card payments. Because, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is big because your credit score hurts. But there's a whole population that we call like situationally challenged credit, and that includes somebody who recently graduated from college, but also includes somebody who had medical bills, a divorce, or lost his job. And so these people slipped into or are in bad credit, but only temporarily until they get the chance to make 6, 12, 18 payments, migrate into better credit segment, and then you can get them out of their current loan, put them into new loans. And so it's true. You could do that with recent college grads. Just try to figure out how to target them 18, 24 months out of college. You can do it with people who lost their job. You can do it with people who had medical bills. You can even target very specific lenders because you know which lenders operate in which credit segment. And so, there's 100 million auto loans out there. 20% of those at any given time would qualify for refinancing. That's 20 million people.
That'll get you started.
Get you started, yeah.
Just get those 20 million users, and you'll be fine.
And then we go to Hawaii together.
There you go. Well, that's not terrible. How much travel is involved with what you do? I mean, are you going out and when you fundraise, are you going to these people, or are you just I mean, how does that even work?
Yeah, so I love traveling. So for me, the last 4 months have been unusual because I used to travel a lot, including from San Francisco, where I'm at right now, to Phoenix, where Carvana's headquarters is. So I went there every week. I have a lot of international friends, went to a lot of weddings internationally. Like all of that changed, obviously. And I'm glad people reduced traveling because it would have spread the virus even more. But since you asked about fundraising has been really interesting lately because when we raised for our previous company, we found ourselves sitting in the car from San Francisco to Palo Alto and back all the time. We could take maximum 2 meetings a day. And it was just really, really, really ineffective use of our time because we spent most of our time in traffic. Now, this time, since we started fundraising, what we found is you can have easily 4 meetings a day. And you become really efficient, effective, and you refine the pitch like in real time while you talk to investors. And so for founders, this is good because you're really effective. You make good use of your time. Also, money becomes more of a commodity because you get to compare different funds quicker, and then it really comes down to who's adding value versus who's investing how much. So you're not having to travel for fundraising is a good idea, and I appreciate that. In the end, you do want to meet your investors in person, even if it's socially distant, because it's like getting married, and you want to know that you're partnering up with the right people. And for those meetings, I do travel. I drove up from Phoenix to San Francisco to meet one of the partners that we want to work with. But personally, I miss the traveling a lot because I used to travel a lot, and now taking the precautions that are necessary makes me not travel a lot, and I'm sad about it.
Yeah, it'll come back. It's just a matter of when, and and how much. I mean, Zoom and the video teleconferencing is just getting huge. It got that bump that it wouldn't have had.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy how that happened. I'm curious to see what happens with business-related travel, because like people just got used to traveling or like trade shows. Like people just get used to it. Yeah, this is a thing, and then you just do that.
Yeah.
Now that like you have this inflection of you have to, like, you're being forced to do it from at home. Let's see if it works, and people find out it works. I wonder whether business travel will pick up as much as it used to. I'm sure like traveling for leisure will come back eventually once the risk is gone. But business travel, I'm curious to see.
Well, I think it's going to change dramatically, personally, just in the sense of humans, we're creatures of nature or of habit. And so if I go 4 months or 6 months or 8 months of not business traveling as much, I'm going to get into that habit of here's how I conduct my business. And my customers are doing the same thing. So if they're getting used to not seeing us, and I just did a full presentation for the spring 2021 line via Zoom, and it was and it worked. My boss the VP of sales got to stay back in Ohio. He didn't have to fly in. He didn't have to pay for the hotel. I didn't have to pick him up. He didn't have to take a red eye home to see his kids again. Our customer. We shipped the samples directly to them. We went through it. It worked out. Everyone seemed happy, and we did it all. It was just bizarre, though.
There's so many good things about it, because it's good for the environment, less travel. It's good for families because people don't travel that much. But then the flip side, I feel really sorry for the airlines, because they're like set up to support the travel. They've been, I think the last have been the most profitable years ever. They were always maximizing utilization of their aircraft. They were buying new ones, but now they have this mega reset. And then I don't know how they're going to react, or how the world is going to change and what they're going to do. But it's like, I don't want to be in an airline business right now.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I have a neighbor, a couple, and their stewardess is for Delta. And
oh, wow.
They've been off of work for 4 months. They don't know if they're going back. They think they are, but they're not sure how high up they are in the hiring process, or what their number is as far as seniority. So, are they going to cut the 25%? Are they going to cut 20% or 30% or 50%? That's, so it's just a life of not knowing. And I think,
so many unknowns.
And what I don't know that a lot of people might not understand is, it's not just, you don't get to fly to your trip. The people that work at Southwest are not working as much. So that means they don't have as much money.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all negative, because then they don't have as much money to spend. So they're not going out and buying shoes. So if they don't buy shoes, then the guy that sells the shoes can't go out and buy clothes. And so the person that sells those clothes can't go out and buy.
Yeah, you have this ripple effect.
Yeah. So I get frustrated when I hear the media and all that say, "Oh, you can't go to the beach today." It's like, it's not going to the beach. It's the vendors for the beach equipment.
Problem, yeah.
It's the tents. Yeah. It's all the coolers. It's the restaurants that are at the beach. It's the people that work at the restaurants. And if they're not being busy, then they're not shopping. And if they're not shopping, then they're not going into your store. So it's not just, I don't get to go to the beach.
I think that's the part that I think is so hard to understand. How, if you look at the stock market, everything is booming. And then yet your neighbors have been working for 4 months. And right now they're being supported by the government, but these support programs end at some point. And then if they end and people are still not flying, then there might, I'm worried there's this ripple effect that exactly what you described will happen. People actually end up having less money. They spend less. People have less income. All of a sudden, in order to sell products, everything goes on sale, and so you have deflation. Things become cheaper, which super short term feels good, but is really bad for the economy.
Yeah, and that's it. And I always tell people it's either spiraling up or it's spiraling down. There's no real stagnant. I mean, either people feel confident that they're going to have a job and make money, and therefore they'll go out and spend money, or they don't. And I could tell what's interesting is I work in the Western industry. You think it's very conservative and all that, but when Trump got elected, my business went way down because half of my business comes from the Latino market, and a lot of the Latinos thought they were going to be sent home, like forcibly, because they thought Trump's going to build a wall and kick everybody out. Well, he physically couldn't do that, But they were still scared. So guess what? When people are scared that they don't know where they're going to live and work, they stop spending money.
Yeah. Fear is how it all starts, and then fear becomes reality.
Well, I always tell people, I go, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen, Nic?
I think, what's it called? I think it's called Hostel or something.
Hostel, yeah.
Where...
Yeah. Okay.
Terrible movie. I mean, good movie, but terrible.
But you knew it was fake, right? I mean, you knew nobody actually died. It's not real blood. They didn't really get they didn't get their arms chopped off or sawed off. But you still got scared.
Yeah.
You still had that emotion of being scared, even though you knew completely it was completely fake.
Yeah. No, it's just a natural reaction.
Yeah.
Instinct.
And so that's what happened, I think. And I think hopefully, trying to come out of this COVID, and depending on how many bankruptcies we get through and all that with companies filing every day, the consumer confidence is going to wane a little bit, I think. But
I agree.
And I think,
I'm with you.
I think the WithClutch will be, if you can get the press on it, you're going to have a lot of people looking at ways to save money, and that's a good way to save money.
I think there's going to be two waves in reality. There's going to be one wave where people, once this government program ends, they're going to be looking for creative ways to free up cash, and arguably refinance your auto loan is a creative way. That's something you hadn't thought about before. Most likely, most people don't think about it. That's wave number one. Wave number two is you as you said, your neighbors, they don't have a job right now. At some point, they won't have any income, and then they may actually miss one or two credit card payments before they get a new job. That will impact their credit. Maybe the new job requires them to have a car, so they buy a car, have to get a loan at a higher rate. Then they'll make their payments, the next 6, 12, 18 payments, and then in a year and a half from now, all of a sudden they qualify for a really healthy refinance, just because they were temporarily, situationally impacted by the pandemic, and their credit worsened, and then they recover again. So I think there's two waves, one relatively immediately soon, and then another one in 18 to 24 months from now.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And that's, yeah. So I think you're as bad as the COVID is for a lot of people. I think some people are will take advantage of it. And you're not that old. You're what, around 30? I'm guessing.
36.
What's that?
36.
Oh, okay. So you're older. But I remember. I was going to say 2008. It was the worst recession we had ever had.
2008.
Yeah, and it was, it was at the time, especially I was in commercial real estate at the time, and that industry failed to exist. So that's how I ended up in the apparel industry, because the commercial development was off 98%. And it was like, when's it coming back? Well, no one knows. So you pivot, right? And because of that, I make more money. I'm doing better. I have a better job. I'm happier. But at the time, it was, holy, what the hell?
Super scary, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the same thing's going to go on here. People are going to freak out and do this and that, but we're learning new ways to conduct business. Same thing with business travel. I think it'll all work out.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, positive thinking helps.
I got a non-financial tech question for you.
Tell me.
What's the best golf course you've played at here in California?
In California, I actually haven't played that many courses in California. Let's see. I went to the Olympic Club in San Francisco when the U.S. Open were there. I think that was 2012.
Did you play it or watch it?
I watched it. One of my very good friends, Martin Kamer, I used to play on the national team with him in Germany.
Yeah, Martin's cool.
He obviously is doing a lot better in golf than I. He played, and so I went and said hello, and then I saw him at the Phoenix Waste Management Open last year. No, I haven't. Yeah, I'm thinking I haven't actually played a lot of courses here. I played a lot of courses in Europe.
Yeah.
Like St. Andrews was really fun to play. There was no wind when I played, so it was relatively easy. There's one next door. It's called Cairns, I believe. Correct, Creole or Cairns or something like that. 2 courses where we played like a Scottish Amateur Championship. That was really fun. There's one really exceptional course, now I'm going off a tangent, in Austria. Out of all places, Austria, there's this very wealthy entrepreneur who made a lot of money and then bought a huge piece of land and built a completely artificial golf club with like lakes, very, very, very American style, but surrounded by mountains in incredible condition. It's called Fontana, I believe. That's incredible golf club. Yeah, I remember having played that one, and it was really fun.
Well, I mean, you live relatively close to Pebble Beach.
That's true.
I mean,
the problem with, so I used to play a lot. Like I played on the national team from age 15 to probably 20, and then I decided to not turn pro. And in Germany, we don't have college sport the way you have it in the US. So you really need to decide to do one or the other, and I went to college, studied computer science and finance, and then I still played for my club, and we won the German championship, I think, twice with the club after I left the national team. But ever since I moved to the US, other than Stanford, the golf club, I played a couple of times. I didn't play that much. And now if you sent me to Pebble Beach right now, I'd lose all my balls in the first hole. And then I would be really frustrated. And so I would really like to play Pebble Beach, but I would want to have like 1 week or 2 weeks of like intense practice before, so I get a sense for how it would be if I played the way I used to play. Right now, I can play any course and be frustrated and not have a good time because like I hit it everywhere but straight.
I don't think it would take you that long. I used to play a lot of golf, and now I don't. I've played twice during the quarantine, and the last time before that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
But I had a carried a 9 handicap, and so I went back.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it was. For a hack that learned at the age of 30, but I went back and played, and I played my daughter's boyfriend, and he beat me by like 10 strokes. And I was like you. I was like, God damn it. And I wasn't so mad that he beat me. It was just I played so bad. So I
know, isn't it frustrating?
I went to the range, but then we played a week later, and I whooped him by eight or 9 strokes. That was 14 over.
Well, so you improved by 20 strokes in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Because it was, I don't know, it's just like I hadn't played in 2 years, so all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. And what I was trying to teach him was, when you get a 9 on a hole, that really jacks up your score. So when we played again, instead of me hitting my driver all the time and losing the ball, I was hitting 3-wood, I was hitting irons, playing smart instead of trying to overpower the ball. So that's where all my strokes came back, because I didn't lose any ball. I literally didn't lose a ball. So
that's pretty good. No, it depends on the course. I played in Phoenix recently, and so
but you got
like fundamentally still.
You have too many courses up there, Nick.
I know how to play.
Nick,
there's a lot.
Half Moon Bay is a great course.
Oh yeah, the one next to the Ritz-Carlton. It's very pretty.
And that's not that hard.
Yeah, I should play more often. You're talking me back into playing. I agree. I played in Phoenix recently, and it was fun, I must admit.
Well, get your fundraising done.
Okay.
Get your fundraising done. Make enough money, and then you can golf more.
Yeah. Okay. You're preaching to the choir.
When is the fundraising coming, and how does that work? Is it just...
Well, good question. Yeah, so fundraising of an early stage company is, we're obviously at the stage where we're pre-product, we're pre-customer, pre-revenue. So the bet investors will be making is, I agree with there's an opportunity, A, and then B, I agree that it's big, and C, I agree that you, Chris, my co-founder, and I would be a team very well qualified to affect the market.
Okay.
And so the feedback we've been receiving is very positive, which is nice. And I'm confident we'll get around together. The question is, do we get the partners we want who can help us who can give us a head start and who know fintech and who can help us hire and who would be good advisors to us. And so we're what feels like in a fortunate position that we'll be able to choose who we raise the money from, which that's unusual. I don't want to jinx it, but that's great. And now we're trying to figure out which one the best partner would be.
Now, are you looking for just money, or are you looking for an actual work partner?
Good question. So depending on where you are, which stage, later stage, you just want money.
Yeah,
because
you've got everything figured out.
Exactly, and you just need fuel that you can put on the fire. We're early. We're also in a space, like we know the car space really well, and we would know like relevant players and would get all the introduction we want in the car space. Personal finance is somewhat new to us, and so having investors on board who invested in other personal finance companies, be it Credit Karma or NerdWallet or some of these personal finance pages, investors who have that experience would be really helpful.
I gotcha. And do you? I mean, we'll have to talk later. I'm just fascinated. Like, if you had a company, how would you go about trying to find out who's a good investor for it? I mean,
there's many dimensions. So, the first question is you want to ask yourself, can you just self-fund this? Because when you keep your company, you don't have to sell shares. And so that's one decision you need to make. Yeah. Given that we were fortunate and that we had a good outcome with Carvana, we could in theory self-fund ourselves. But what you really want is you want to be fearless, have really big ambitions. You don't want to put all eggs into one basket. So in our case, we'll not touch our savings, but instead invest our time, and then have other investors who actually have a lot of experience in the space provide the capital, and we'll work together. And the way you figure out whether or not somebody's a good match content-wise is you just look into the portfolio companies. You just look into what are the other companies they invested in. You do reference checks on the partners, and you'll find out that some investors were on the board of, be it a Credit Karma company or NerdWallet or any other fintech business. Mm-hmm. And if they're on the board, they've heard a lot, they know a lot, they know like which mistakes to avoid. They know when you hire software engineers, designers, product people, which one is the right archetype to hire, which one isn't. Does brand matter, yes or no? How do you build brand? And so they've just seen it before. They literally had the chance to watch the fintech business being built successfully before. And so you get a head start, and you avoid making the same mistakes. And that's how you then would choose one firm versus the other one. And that's somewhat in the process we're in right now.
And are you hoping to continue to work with WithClutch after you raise the money and all that, or?
Oh yeah, no. Then the work begins. Like we're only just starting. We're pitching. We're pitching the idea of a business to investors, and then we use the capital we get to build the business that we're pitching.
I gotcha.
Okay. The work has yet to start.
Gotcha. Sounds
also,
like
when we raise money, it's not. I don't get the money; the company gets it.
No,
the company uses it. Yep.
Well, that's the other thing. Like you always say, they raised $10 million, but it's not like that guy gets $10 million. He got $10 million to invest back into that company.
Yeah.
I mean,
far from it.
Yeah. Well,
it's even problematic because you're getting used to talking about big numbers. This is not your money. There's no way you can access it. You get your salary. You're an employee.
Yep.
You happen to own on paper a large part of the company, but it's not liquid, and nobody would buy it, and it's worthless without you. It really isn't worth all that much without you. You can't liquidate. And then once you start hiring people and you build a product, and especially if it's software that you need to build, and you don't have a way to make revenue early, then you can spend $10 million relatively quickly. It'll sound crazy, but like salaries are really high in the Bay Area. And if you hire a team of 20, 30, 40 people, and like given cost of living, people cost $150,000 in the Bay Area, do the math, and you realize it sums up very quickly.
Well, and that's I'm just wondering how the quarantine could affect that, because if you were going to get 40 people for WithClutch, you would go out and get an office space. But now, are you going to reconsider that and work remotely, you know?
Those are good questions to ask. Like, we have many founders in the Bay Area, and we're obviously comparing notes and hearing how they manage the transition from office to work from home.
Yeah.
And so what you find is a lot of the employees left the city, like New York and San Francisco. I think are the two cities in the U.S. where most people have been leaving, and rents for the first time in 10 years are going down pretty drastically. And so that has two positive effects. People are happier because they are where they actually want to be and not in a city where they have to be because of what they do for work. But that also means cost of living is cheaper where people move to. And you can probably hire people for slightly lower salaries.
Yep.
The downside of being fully remote is it's very hard to build a company culture. Like you want values to be aligned. You want people to be in it for the right reasons. And you don't want them to just do work and then turn off their Zoom. You want them to like live and breathe the company values. And so that's, I imagine, a little harder to do over Zoom.
So I think you're going to find that one out for yourself. You know?
We will. Yeah, I hope we will.
Yeah, because the other thing I think it could free you up potentially is there might be a really good person that you want to work with, but they're in Dallas and they've got kids and family, and if they can work remotely for it, then you're still getting the best person for the job without him or her having to move to the Bay Area, which is
I agree.
Probably the most expensive place in the airport.
Agreed. Yeah. Even prior to COVID, I would have probably. I always said, and Chris agrees with me, like enthusiasm trumps talent.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who's just a really good fit because he loves what you're doing and he's a software engineer, and you have another software engineer who's on paper just great and has great credentials, but isn't in it for the right reasons, the person who's enthusiastic will always will care more, will want to make things work, will work harder, and like ultimately be very aligned with the founders. Because as a founder, you're not in it for the money only.
No, exactly.
Like if money is your main motivator, you shouldn't even start a company. There's easier ways to make money. Startups just don't work out all the time, and then it's a really, really, really tough grind. And so, if you find somebody who's in it for the right reasons, it really doesn't matter where they are. And now that's even tolerated, quote unquote, by investors. Investors always would have preferred people to be not remote. No, investors encourage you to go remote.
Yeah, I mean that could be, and it's going to become even more socially acceptable after
totally.
What we're going through. So instead of it making you look like you're just trying to save money by hiring a cheaper person, it makes sense that you're trying to get the right person regardless of where they live.
Yep, I agree.
So I think that's the kind of the business culture that's going to change with this. And people aren't looking at that right now. Right now, everyone's, I mean, and rightfully so, they're going, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my car payment? You know, if the governor doesn't let us go back to work, how do I pay for these things? But hopefully...
We should refinance.
Yeah, with Clutch.
Exactly. No, but I agree with you. Not like this is obviously terrible what's happening. I want for everybody to stay healthy and sane and safe. But I think for humanity, this is an interesting one because we had pandemics before humanity reacted one or the other way. I think in 2 years from now, hopefully, when we look back and realize we overcame this together and we got from not knowing a virus to developing vaccines in a record time and FDA approvals and all these things that need to be taken care of were done in record time. All of a sudden, we proved to ourselves how agile we are. And then this is a reason to celebrate.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. You know, like I said, dude, I remember 2008. I had friends that worked for cabinet companies and home builders that had been around for 50 years, and poof, and they thought, you know, they just went out of business. And because if you can't build a house, then you don't need to have a home builder. So
no, there was a space of where you have these traditional businesses that were all doing fine. All of a sudden, there was a little bit of a gold rush. Everybody was making more and more money, and then it stopped abruptly, and there was no more business. These things repeat themselves, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like you had the same thing with Bitcoin 2 years ago. Everybody thought Bitcoin is the next big thing, and then it crashed. And like these bubbles repeat themselves. And the economy needs to react and adapt.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. What's the best way for my listeners, if they wanted to find out what you have going on or what WithClutch has going on, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Yeah, easiest way is to just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Just look for Nicholas Hinrichsen. If you could put my name in the show notes, it's even easier. And then connect with me. I'd love to compare notes, get your thoughts. Feedback is a gift. If somebody has an idea, let me know, and I'd love to connect.
I appreciate the time that you gave us, and I'll make sure to put all the links on my website and in the show notes so they can just reach out to you. One thing I can verify is you are very aggressive about reaching out and thankfully very, very prompt with the replies and everything. I mean, it's, what I do is extra time, for people. And so I appreciate the fact that you are very, very considerate of that. So,
no, thanks for having me. This was a good time. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I go up to the Bay Area 4 or 5 times a year, so maybe I'll bring my clubs with me. Force you to get out to a driving.
Absolutely, and then we'll play the Olympics or the Presidio.
Maybe we'll just go to the driving range first with you.
Yeah, okay. I was hoping you recommend that.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds good, bud. And cool. Have fun, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.